Hey, it's Jose Galison. You're watching No Way Jose. You can find me on the No Way Jose YouTube channel, all the major audio podcatchers, and Odyssey as well. Credit to Justin Campbell at jcamp1521 on Twitter. He's the one who did the intro, and he's if you ever have any sort of podcasting need, editing, intros, anything like that, go hit him up. He would be glad to take your commissions, I'm sure. My guest today is Sal the Agorist. We're continuing our live reading series. Just so you guys know, I do this every time just so you guys are aware. If you're watching this on the 28th, it's a live stream, and it'll only be available publicly the day of. It will go up publicly about a week or so for now. If you want to have it in the meantime, to be able to have access to it, you need to become a patron at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Yeah, the lowest level being $2, the highest level being 20. And at the $20 level, you're a sponsor. I read you off every episode. And for that, I have C.D. McRae of the Whiskey and Tea podcast. Go check her out. I have an episode over there. Go check that out. It's kind of circular, supporting her, supporting me, and supporting me, supporting her, so on and so forth. I also have Jeremy. He has an Etsy. He's etsy.com/shop/raising liberty. A lot of liberty content over there. At Jeremy Rhymes, like rhyming, like the, poop dupe, rhyming like that word, just like you think it is. On Twitter, go follow him. Like I said, it was patreon.com/Jose2020. If you don't want to do that, don't do it. It's fine. But if you do it. I definitely like money. Like I said, we're doing our live ring series right now. This right now, we just started the response because we're in the back end of the New Libertarian Manifesto. And we already covered Rothbard's critique because anyone who knows the New Libertarian Manifesto or been paying attention, Konkin sent this out, the draft, to a bunch of bigwigs at the time to get their critiques. We already covered Rothbard's critique, and now what we're covering right now is Konkin's response to Rothbard's critique. So this should be good. I'm interested to see. It's been a while since I've read this. Like I said, me and Sal already kind of went into the Rothbard one. It was pretty eye-opening. I would definitely suggest checking it out. Even if you don't even check out the New Libertarian Manifesto live reading or anything, I honestly, this is in some ways kind of the best part of the book, even though it's not actually the book. It's just an interesting exchange. I know when I read it the first time, I found it really interesting, and I'm enjoying it again the second time through. Just to plug stuff, I got James Gentleman coming on next week. I got for Tower Gang right now. They're actually, they got Crypt Daddy on right now. And for the 28th, like I said at the beginning, for those so if you're watching this when it comes out later, it's already out. Definitely go check that out. We're in the later parts of our Zyklon Showers tournament, so that one's fun. I want to remind you guys, we did just recently get nuked off YouTube, Tower Power Hour. So Odyssey. I mean, follow me on Odyssey as well. I think Odyssey has a good chance to be the future of this stuff because YouTube keeps going downhill, and I don't see any chance of it going back. I don't see any sort of Elon Musk coming in and buying out YouTube and changing everything. Maybe not, but you do what you can and don't expect some big strong man to come save it. So, go get on YouTube or Odyssey, go support them. We'll be able to have more fun on Odyssey too. So we're not that we were really censoring ourselves before, but we kind of were probably a little bit to some extent. And if you are someone who doesn't know a Tower Power Hour, if you don't like crass dark humor, don't follow it. But if that is your shtick, go check it out. You might like it. You can check out TopLobsta, TopLobsta.com. Use Jose at checkout for 10% off. I forgot to mention we have on May 7th at TopLobsta's house here in the Florida area. We have the Robbie Bernstein's having his kickoff event for the Summer Porch Tour. So definitely go check that out. The whole Tower Gang is going to be there, or they're supposed to be. Reed and Toad are the only ones up in the air. I think Toad already orders tickets. Reed's we're still waiting. I'm not sure if he's bought his tickets or not, but supposedly he's coming. We'll see. So all the gang, if not all the gangs minus Reed, should be there. So definitely we're going to be doing a live podcast with him and the whole gang and Robbie Bernstein. So it'll be a fun time. He's doing an hour of comedy. Definitely go check it out. All right, enough of this grifting. Let's get Sal in here. Oh, messed up the button. Hey, what's up, man?
What's up? How are you, man?
Doing good. You coming to this thing the 7th? Probably not.
Dude, I was just asking. I was just wondering about that when you were saying it. Where do you get tickets?
I'll actually just had to. I'll send it to you after. It's like
Okay.
Eventbrite. I think it's on Robbie's page, but I can send it to you. I actually just sent it to one of my buddies today, who because he's someone who's not really like one of the initiated. He's like more of a normie type, and he was wanting to go. So
Okay.
yeah. So I'll
Send me the link. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's like $25. There's only 50 seats or 50 tickets available. So I was on there today, and they still had I was still able to click the button. Obviously, I didn't go to checkout, so I don't know how that works. If it's already filled up, if how far it lets you go, like it will let you get to checkout and be like, nah. So I mean, I since they let me hit the ticket button, I assume there's still some available. I don't know.
And that's over by Orlando, right? Like Central Florida. Yeah. Okay.
He's like the Villages, kind of Orlando-ish sort of area. So you are both roughly in the Tampa area. I mean, slightly different areas. You're like more St. Pete. I'm more south in the like Riverview, Brandon-ish area. But for me and you, it's probably gonna be like a 3-hour drive. So.
You got the Bass Pro over there, so yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, well, I even then I'm in the country. I mean, you're in the St. Pete more city area ish. I don't know what your exact living situation is, but yes, I say Riverview, Ruskin area, but it's even further south. It's a little more country, but yeah.
Good, dude. That's what I'm trying to get out that way. My goal is to get out that way eventually.
Well, I mean, I don't know what kind of budget you're working with, but I think where I'm at is it's technically an HOA, but everything is deeded out for an acre or more. So it's basically like country, and the HOA literally just covers roads, and that's it. So it's just like literally more of just a slush fund for roads.
Better than the government doing it.
Yeah, and there is one right down the road from me that I think that it's for sale right now. So I don't know your budget you're working with, but yeah.
I'm literally just trying to buy like land out in the middle of nowhere at this point and like build my own like fucking homestead and just fuck off a stand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there's definitely some of that too in my area, just not in my neighborhood. That you'd have to go like outside the neighborhood, but in like my town, it's just basically this like literally this is the only like neighborhood in that town that I can think of. So,
and the Villages was where they had the voter fraud. To what extent was TopLobsta involved?
He just got there, so
that's the question.
Yeah. Well, is it really? I mean, I think it's a giant like city, or it's basically a giant nursing home. So
it is.
I don't know.
There's like a big like voting fraud scandal. I guess they were like printing out like ballots for Trump during the last election or something like that.
Oh, I don't recall that. I didn't know if it was one of those things where like maybe someone thought it was voter fraud. And like, look at all these old people voting. Like these have just got to be all dead people.
Could have been CNN. Yeah.
They're like, no, they're literally just old people that live here. Like
that could have been too. Yeah, that could have been a CNN story.
Yeah, because it's this weird mega retirement area. So I could see if someone was looking at stats, be like, why is there this insane amount of incredibly geriatric people voting in this area? And like, but you're like, no, there literally are that many old people there. So, yeah. Well, I guess that's probably enough for small talk. Let's go ahead and get into the reading.
Let's do it.
As always,
be a good one.
Yeah, it should be good. We'll see how it goes. See, because we did pick apart at Rothbard's critique, so it'll be interesting to see if Konkin went down similar avenues as us. This will be a little bit more refreshing because it was almost frustrating seeing Rothbard. So it'll be nice to be like, oh, here's someone who, okay, all right, nice. Someone who agrees with me. And a nice little palate cleanser.
Yeah. All right, exactly.
Not to say there's anything wrong with people disagreeing with you. It's just, I don't know. I guess I some of the critiques from Rothbard I expected more. So I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed, but it is what it is. All right. Reply to Rothbard by Samuel Konkin III. Murray and Rothbard's vigorous assault is refreshing. I'm not sure even I would have taken my first major theoretical attempt seriously if I had not evoked Dr. Rothbard as trenchant top of form. After all, Rothbard and his neo-romantic view of ideas almost as clashing superheroes and villains inspired and maintained many, if not most, of us libertarian activists, most assuredly myself. Having been offered a field of honor, Rothbard throws the gauntlet down swiftly. I believe Konkin's agorism to be a total failure. From then on, it's lunge, parry, and slash. In fine form, Rothbard, alas, is decidedly short of actual weapons. I do like how he fillets him and then, and then slaps him down. That's actually pretty good.
He's an underrated writer, Konkin.
Yeah.
He really is. You know,
that was very clever and like good sociological warfare. like
lunge, parry, slash. He capitalizes the idea. It's great writing here.
Yeah. His accusation of a fatal flaw, seemingly the fatal flaw of agorism, is so irrelevant to the basis of agorism that is barely mentioned en passant in a footnote of New Libertarian Manifesto. Before I dismiss it as a criticism of agorism, let me point out that a real debate is justified between Rothbard and many others, to be sure, and me, and quite a few, concerning the validity of hiring out oneself. The necessity of it is in question. Cybernetics and robotics increasingly replace drudgery, up to including management activity. The psychology of it is in question. Selling one's personal activity under another's direction and supervision encourages dependency and authoritarian relationships. And the profit in it is open to question. Only the rarest skills, acting, art, super science, command anywhere near the market reward or even low-level entrepreneurship. All right, okay, I like that. He kind of was being like, he was kind of like, that was a little bit like, to be fair to Rothbard kind of point. Because he's kind of saying in the current situation, I can see kind of where he's coming from. But go on.
Right. So like, this is a good, I like this part because what he's doing is he's saying, look, this isn't even relevant to agorism. Like whether it's true or false or not doesn't invalidate the theory of agorism whatsoever. But then he says, but let's take that on, regardless. And he says, look, we're talking, what he says right here, the necessity of it is in question. It's not that we're saying it's, immoral or something like that. It's the necessity of it, the psychology of it. And when he says the profit of it, obviously there's more profit in entrepreneurship. So, I think he's just lining up the bowling pins to knock them down here.
Having said that, it remains that this debate is irrelevant in the context of validity of agorism. Surely both Rothbard and I would agree on the desirability of increasing the number of entrepreneurs in our society. Which I do want to point out, that was one thing we touched on a lot, is Rothbard would seem to continually put it in terms of almost like a binary, which Rothbard himself, I guarantee, would agree that, hey, it's better to have more entrepreneurs. And that's kind of like, which is what Konkin is entirely saying. Like, he's not saying that we need to have Thanos snap everyone into entrepreneurs overnight. And
it's like, well, why, Rothbard? Why should we have more entrepreneurs? Like, what's your answer? That's all we're saying here.
Yeah. Surely we would both desire more entrepreneurs of libertarianism. Rothbard would simply let it happen. Finding the origins of entrepreneurs mysterious. My own experience is that entrepreneurs are made, not born, and not with that great a difficulty, so that entrepreneurizing the production of entrepreneurs is a profitable activity. Are made, not born. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, because he's saying Rothbard's kind of like, just let it happen, where I do think there is something to saying, like, if that's a thing you find to be desirable, why would you not encourage it? Like, like you have to, and he even says it's not too difficult, which is kind of true. I mean, it is difficult, and it's also not difficult. Like, I know you have your side hustles, I have my side hustles. I mean, don't get me wrong, my side hustle in some senses is difficult, but I think most people's side hustles you build up over time. So it's not like it wasn't
right.
It's hard, but it's not.
No
hard
one is born a businessman. No one is born with a business. You know what I mean? I mean, very few people are born with a business. You know what I mean? But even those people aren't entrepreneurs; they're heirs, right? Those are people who inherit like a fortune. That's not what we're talking about. So, like, I don't know. It's a clear distinction to me, and I think the crazy part of it all to me is that it's so clear in Austrian economics. Like, the role of the entrepreneurs has been so clearly cut out that it's like, how Rothbard could miss this. I'll never know.
Yeah. But ceteris paribus, as the maestro says, let us hold the number of entrepreneurs constant. How does that affect agorism? It makes it difficult to convert libertarians to counter-economic entrepreneurialism, but they still can and ought to become counter-economic capitalists and workers, even academics, which I feel like that was a point I remember I was stressing a lot. I think you did a little bit too. even like entrepreneurialism aside, you still can kind of be more agoristically minded, even if you aren't an entrepreneur. Like you can be a wage individual, someone who works for wages, and still make certain decisions that, yes, you're going to be able to make more agoristic decisions as an entrepreneur than you will as a wage worker, but you still have those opportunities, but probably to a lesser degree as a wage worker.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's entirely true. Anyone, one of the most common critiques of agorism is that, look, not everybody could do this. This isn't cut out for everybody. But it's like, look, you can do a 9 to 5, you can go work like a regular full-time job, come home and work on your side hustle. That's how most entrepreneurs start, in fact. That's how I started. I was working like a regular wage slave job, and I eventually it was nights and weekends. And eventually you work your way up to a full-time income, and then you can, you dedicate yourself entirely. That's the whole point, though.
Yeah, but his point is, like, he says, if we hold the number of entrepreneurs constant, which his point kind of being like, if we assume no one else becomes an entrepreneur, even the side hustle aside, if you just like, I don't know, say for example, you instead of even something as simple as instead of going to Applebee's, go to the little like kind of rinky dink looking like Mexican restaurant that is kind of run by and pay with cash. You know what I mean? Because let's be real,
yes.
you know what they're gonna do with it. Like
exactly, yeah, right. They're not going to report that in April, of course.
Yeah, and it's just little decisions like that. It's just a slight tweak in your thinking, and
like a full-time wage worker. There's nothing stopping them from going to the farmer's market and trading with Bitcoin or silver coins.
Yeah, and that's not to say, and I think we touched on this a lot in here too. That's not to say that you're necessarily being unlibertarian if, like, I don't know, you're short on time, so you go to Walmart instead of the farmer's market. You're
not
whatever,
at all.
But it's just a matter of like when you can do what you can, and that's kind of the whole point of all of this, really. The agorism in general.
Do the most that do the most that you possibly can.
Yeah, and I think what happens is as you embrace this mindset, you find yourself being able to do more and more and more and more and more and more and more until you get to a point. Ideally, you may get to a point where you're a full-on entrepreneur, or you have embraced the agora to the fullest extent that you can within your given subjective circumstances.
And that's the whole thing. Once you do that, at that point, you are free. The revolution is won. Like, that's what people don't understand. It's like, once you accept that you are free, and you do that through entrepreneurship and counter economics, at that point, the revolution is over. Right? You don't need to knock on doors. You don't need to vote for people. You don't need to convince anybody. It's all the revolution is in your mind. It's all up here.
Yeah. But when we're talking about converting maybe 2 million libertarians at present to counter economics and 40 million or so counter economists already proven to have a strong entrepreneurial component to libertarianism, the loss of a few thousand extra entrepreneurs seems less than crucial. Moreover, a degree of overlap already exists between libertarians and counter economists, a high degree in my association. Again, in passing only, my own observations are that independent contracting lowers transaction costs. In fact, it nearly eliminates them relative to boss-worker relationships, running the gamut from casual labor with annoying paperwork and records to full-scale corrupt worker welfareism. But this is an empirical question. One, as Mises would say, not even for economists, but economic historians. Why my Austrian credentials should be called into question over such an observation is inexplicable, save as an act of verbal intimidation. On guard, then. Do you have anything to say there?
No. I just love how he keeps with that analogy. Like, he's like having I feel like we're having like an old school fencing battle between Konkin and Rothbard.
I do want to say in that last paragraph, I'm not going to give out details, but there's a certain situation I may be going into here soon where I'm going to be, for some entrepreneurial businessman, they may be sending me things like large, and it's nothing here is illegal, by the way. And even if it was, I wouldn't give a shit. But like, just so people know, it's not like I'm just being vague because it's weird to like say names if they don't want to names. But anyways, they're gonna be sending me shit and like large widgets or whatever, and then I'm going to be sending those widgets, because you can send multiple, whether it be hundreds or thousands, send it to me to one centralized location, and then I'm going to send it out to somewhere else. And it's because it's like a client relationship thing, kind of like welcome packages type thing. And the reason why is because me as a random person, it's actually cheaper for this individual to do that than it would be for them to get the individual companies, send them out individually, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like there's kind of a perfect example of how one single entrepreneur makes more sense. And this is literally just one little gig that, you know, isn't even like something that it would make a ton of money off of. This is just one small little example of like how that kind of plays in. And there are a million other examples. I was just trying to provide a real world example of how sometimes a single person is more beneficial. And that's not to say there aren't benefits from large, factories or whatever the fuck. And, you know, I know we can say in the future there may be ways that we overcome that through manufacture or whatever, you know, say with like 3D printing, et cetera, you know? So.
Well, I think when Konkin says here that independent contracting lowers transaction costs relative to the boss-worker relationship, and that those transaction costs include everything from casual labor to annoying paperwork and worker welfareism. And I think that is really sort of like the key. Like, think about like all of the people in your work as an entrepreneur who you deal with. You don't have to deal with that bullshit.
Yeah.
If you own a grocery store and you have 100 employees, each employee, there's payroll tax, there's W-2s, there's all sorts of bullshit paperwork. Worker welfareism, as Konkin puts it, that goes along with it. With entrepreneurship, there's none of that shit. I work with Lily Forrester a lot for design work, for books and different stuff, different like Agorist projects. There's no like paperwork. We're not doing tax paperwork. We're sending each other Bitcoin. Like there's no bullshit, and that is the way it's supposed to be. That's the whole point. That is one of the freeing aspects of entrepreneurship as opposed to wage work.
Yeah. You want to say real quick? Thank you, Outlaw Barber. Sorry about Tower Gang getting nuked. I'll watch you guys on YouTube. Everyone be like Outlaw Barber. I'm gonna plug that again because
on Odyssey, he said.
On Odyssey, yes, on Odyssey. Go watch Tower Power Hour on Odyssey. Type in Tower Power Hour. It should be the only thing that pops up. Good shit. Well, I mean, if that's your thing. I mean, if you more like theory and you're not more of a comedy guy, and especially offensive comedy. I mean, you know what? I don't even care. Just go there. I mean, if you're offended, well, I don't care. It's not like I'm worried about you reporting me because we're not on YouTube anymore. So.
True.
It is a real bummer. We were doing good on numbers, and but it is what it is. We got to build up.
It's sort of like the leash is off, though. Like you said, It's almost like who cares now? What are they gonna do? Throw you off? They already did.
Yeah. Yeah. And wage labor's historical benefit may have been as great as the invention of the diaper, but surely toilet training, in this case, entrepreneurialization, is an even more significant advance, which I think that's actually a critique we pointed out as well. Like, yes, just because that was one thing Rothbard pointed out was how revolutionary like the wage labor concept was. And it's like, okay, cool, but that doesn't mean there's not a further way to go. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean that's not really an argument. Like, yes, obviously this is preferable to the previous system they had before.
Right. So. The horse and buggy was great, but you know what? Like airplanes are wonderful. You know what I mean? So it's like
All right. With the side excursion over, we turn to counter economics, admittedly the basis of agorism and the new libertarian strategy. Rothbard finds the NLM neglecting the white market, yet there is one crucial point on which it is most definitely not neglected, either here or in my other counter-economic writings. The agorist imperative is to transform white into black. Nothing should be clearer. To do so is to create a libertarian society. What else can a libertarian society mean in economic terms but removing market activity from the control of the state? I like that point. That's good.
This is like I get into trouble trying to promote this view often. It's just, and especially in terms of like the drug war and stuff like that. And everyone's like, legalize drugs. And I'm like, Mark Allen Feldman, I don't know how long the listener's been around for. Mark Allen Feldman ran as president in like 2016 or something like that. And he said at the time, he goes, drugs shouldn't be legalized like nicotine or like tobacco and alcohol. They should be normalized like caffeine and chocolate. And it's like, that's exactly true. It's like, that's the whole point. You don't want to it's not a victory for us to bring things under control of the white market into the realm of taxation. It's in our interest as agorists to move into the anarchic market, the black market, which is really the only free market that's ever existed.
Yeah. And I guess, you know what, the immediate thought I had is like, well, we don't want to normalize all drugs. But then I thought about it for a second when you just said that. And I was like, wait, that's not so bad. Because, like, say even something like meth, like, all right, you pointed out like coffee, like, or caffeine. If one of your buddies came into work and was like, I had 3 pots of coffee this morning, you'd be like, are you fucking retarded? Like, just because you normalize it doesn't mean you don't realize the negative effects of it. And like, and
well,
it's not to say like come on.
maybe decriminalize is a better word. I don't think like it should be normal to like come in and be like on crack or anything like that. But like, there's a difference between legalizing something and then, all right, well, it's still being taxed and regulated and stuff like that, and then completely like decriminalizing it so that there's no laws applying to it whatsoever.
Yeah,
I'm advocating for the latter.
Yeah,
which is usually only found in a black market.
Yeah, I feel like normalize has a connotation. I guess the best way I'd put it is like demystify. Yeah. So like then that's not even to say anyone should do meth. Like it should just be that we, because I think some drugs. I mean, I've talked about this especially early on when I show check out the Clean Libertarian. I think I did some episodes with him where we were talking about drugs because I've done a lot. I've done a hefty amount of drugs, so I'm well experienced. And I will say, don't get me wrong, some drugs are bad, and a lot of drugs do have negative side effects, and actually really all drugs have some side effect to some extent, but most of them are, and I'm not saying this to say go do drugs. It's like we don't have a healthy understanding of how they work. So like, and if you demystify them, like it kind of takes that away, because to some extent making it illegal almost makes it cool or whatever.
Right.
But then on the other hand, then you have, it kind of creates this weird wedge where you have people on one side. It kind of makes it cool on one hand, but on the other hand, you have people who make it out like, oh, you're going to do cocaine once and you're going to be addicted and you're going to be sucking dick in an alley or something. It's like anyone who's done cocaine like once or twice, you're like, no, not really. Like I mean, not to go on a side tangent. But
no, yeah, you're right. I agree with you. But I think like ultimately, like anyway, like the point that he's trying to make here is that the only free market that actually exists is a black market. Like a white market is not a free market, despite like the normal connotations here.
Yes. Just for YouTube's, I'm not glorifying drug use. All right. Just for
YouTube, saying to go out and do crack and meth and
yeah, but if you want to do some cocaine every once in a while,
shoot it right in between your toes.
All right. Yeah. Nothing can be cleared. I want to repeat that again. What else can a libertarian society mean in economic terms but removing market activity from the control of the state? I just really like that sentence. That was really succinct. Market activity not under control of the state is black market. Market activity under the control of the state is white market, and we are against it.
One more quick point there. It's like like a common critique of anarchism is like you hear, and all anarchists and comms and casts, it's like, well, that's not real anarcho-communism, or it's like, when has that ever been tried? Like no one's ever tried that. When has a free market actually existed, libertarian? Well, only we agorists have a historical example that we can point to, because the black market is agorism in practice. It is working. It's happening today. We can point to it all the time, and it's the only form of anarchism that actually exists in real time.
Yep. To illustrate, slaves building pyramids are white market. All right, like slaves who run away make deals on the side with stones and tools they have ripped off and otherwise engage in non-slave activity are black market and free to that extent. What should the libertarian view be toward white market pyramid building?
I love it. It's great.
Or if you think pyramids would not exist in a free society, but aqueducts might, what should our view be toward aqueduct building on the white market versus black market water smuggling? New libertarians urge the slaves to screw the aqueduct and go for their private buckets until such time as aqueducts can be built under voluntary arrangements. Would Rothbard suggest anything else? Gradual phasing out of aqueduct construction and hence gradual phasing out of slavery. Rothbard's abolitionist credentials are not challenged, though my own treatment on such matters may impel me otherwise. but a mainly innocent businessman who pays taxes is enslaved to that extent. It is not his going back or black by dodging or defying taxes, whichever works best. I think that's a key point. Whichever works best, because it's a common thing, and I say it ad nauseum, and I feel like I've said it a million times in this series. It's not a binary. It's not, you don't have to go to one extreme or the other. No one's saying get yourself locked up. If anything, the point is to evade that. Surely the immediate emancipation of this slave. How can Rothbard reject any counter-economic moves that have less than 100% risk of apprehension by a white marketeer without yielding his abolitionist bona fides? Rothbard's listing of counter-economic services and goods are interesting in one respect: of jewels, gold, drugs, candy bars, stockings, etc. Only one, drugs, is mentioned in the manifesto. True, counter-economics is only now being published chapter by chapter, but even so, the few examples I gave were far more than a few service industries or easily concealed goods. Here's a list. Go ahead.
Let me just jump in there. Let's back up. The previous paragraph, at the end of the previous paragraph, there's an interesting quote here. He says, how can Rothbard reject any counter-economic moves by a white marketeer without yielding his abolitionist bona fides? And like that, if you really think about it, that's a brilliant point right there. How could you reject the white marketeer moving into the black market if you're also opposed to slavery? Because it's literally the same exact thing as a slave casting off his chains and being like, no, I'm free from now on. Like, or I'm free to the extent that this move allows me. So it's like, Rothbard, especially in his role as like a revisionist historian and in his opposition to like the Civil War and stuff like that, it's like he calls himself an abolitionist, but at the same time, in this sense, he's promoting the continuation of slavery.
And I don't know. I think there's a quote he has on the matter, but I know for a fact he said things along the lines too of that, like essentially the state to some extent is essentially slavery, whether it be taxes or what have you. It is to some extent slavery. Obviously slavery to a lesser degree, but it's still slavery, Oh,
absolutely. And that's the whole thing. It's like, and like here, he's telling you, don't cast away your chains.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can you be an abolitionist? I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting point that Konkin made. I had never really,
to be fair,
zoned in on it.
Maybe Rothbard did say that, but I don't know I don't recall him characterizing it like that. I think more the point he was getting at is that this is not the way to go about it. But I think he was more like, from what it seemed to be, from what I recall, the way he characterized it, it's like, kind of do it if you want to, no one's going to hold it against you. But, if you're thinking you're going to save the world this way, is kind of how he characterized it, think again kind of deal.
True.
That's
a fair point. Yeah, it's a fair point.
So, but yeah, to be fair to Rothbard. So I don't think he's necessarily against, engaging in black market activity. I think he's more just saying, oh, you think you're going to free yourself that way or whatever,
Fair. That's fair.
Would disagree with on there. Here is a list sifted from pages 42 to 45, which were mentioned. Food to television repair. An entire country, Burma, is almost a total black market. This does include heavy industry. Although Burma has less than the heavy industry of India, which is mostly black, the large black labor force of Western Europe, housing in the Netherlands, tax evasion in Denmark, currency control evasion in France, underground economy, tax-free exchanges in the U.S., drugs, including lateral and forbidden medical material, prostitution, pornography, bootlegging, false identification papers, gambling, and prescribed sexual conduct between consenting adults. All right, that was brutal to read. Like, he's still going on, but he's obviously making a point here.
And like all the things he's mentioning are still relevant today.
Yes.
40 years later.
Yeah. Trucking, which I guarantee you, there's probably a lot of black and gray market stuff that goes on.
Look at Canada. Look at Canada.
Yeah,
just a couple months ago.
Yeah, and there's so many independent operators, and I'm sure curb rules and stuff. And then obviously, I don't remember. I believe it was in one of these books, and this is like a commonly known thing. The whole they even made a song about I can't drive 55. Like they have that song, and like that whole thing is they set the highways for 55, and then you got this song about we got a big old convoy, like because that was them figuring out ways to evade the whole stupid fucking 55 thing, because they're like, we how like you're really screwing us over here money wise. So like,
Oh, in Jersey, there's like I don't know much about trucking, but in Jersey, there's like weight limits and shit like that. And I used to have friends who would make fortunes by like blowing the weight limit. They wouldn't even stop at the weight stations and stuff like that. So yeah, trucking is a huge one.
Yeah. Smuggling at all levels and misdirection of government regulators. None of these are petty. On the like, especially the trucking one. Like we found out the past
that's
year,
huge.
like, it's huge. Yeah, like none of these are petty. On the contrary, consciously or otherwise, on the part of their practitioners, these activities are in aggregate big businesses. Like, can you imagine if they just really decided willy-nilly apply today in a modern time, especially now where our fucking supply lines are so strained? So let's say they decide, like, you know what, all highways max 45. And say everyone out there was too scared to break the rules, like how fucked we would be. Like, I mean, I guess to some extent still get the shit, and like, but prices would go up. There'd probably be a lot of empty shelves. It would be a nightmare.
Yeah, I think here though, I think he's talking about like the truckers' role in counter economics insofar as like them like for example, like if a hurricane happens in Florida and they say, oh, well, no price gouging or something like that. And then like you and I hire a truck and we bring in a bunch of cases of water at $5 over market price or something like that.
Yeah.
That is the sort of counter-economic trucking I think that Konkin is referring to, or like what I was talking about before about like, disregarding the weight regulations or I know like they have a logbook of like how many hours they can work and sleep and stuff like that. So it's like by avoiding all those regulations, it's a very extremely regulated industry. So there's extreme opportunities for counter economics.
Yeah, you were more speaking to the black. I was more speaking to the gray here. So like, because I was more speaking like, they kind of push the rules or disregard them, and they're still somewhat operating within the bounds of what they're sort of supposed to do. But they're bending the rules to a great degree. In my example, your example is more black, but once again, that's kind of my point is, or one point that I think Konkin's kind of getting at that Rothbard kind of missed as well, that common people do today. Not a binary. It's you're pushing it to the extent you can. You're not just flagrantly breaking the law to break the law. You're pushing it to the extent you feel comfortable doing so, given whatever circumstances.
I mean, like in regards to like the roads and stuff like that. Before we went live, we were talking about like homeowners associations and how they can control roads and shit like that. That's sort of like, to me, that's what I see as the sort of counter-economic solution to the road monopoly, because it's introducing competition into the market.
Yep.
Right? Because now like people can say like, look, I drive through this HOA, look how nice the roads are. There's no potholes. Everything's beautiful. It's all manicured. You know what? I'm going to go look for an HOA to live in next because I want this too. And that sort of decreases demand on the state road infrastructure. But like, it's all about introducing competition into a market that's been monopolized by the state. That's what we're doing with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. That's what we're doing with all these different things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Although I will say there are a lot of shitty HOAs, but I would say you probably could really blame that on the state in a lot of ways, because I know they have a lot of regulations and weird shit they have to abide by. But anyways, beside the point.
There is. But the other interesting thing about that too is, it's sort of like a very Hoppian solution. Is because Hop talks about these covenant communities. If anybody's ever read Hop, he's big on forming covenant communities based on a covenant, which is sort of like an HOA if you think about it.
Yeah.
And really, like if you go to a lot of shitty places in the world, I don't know if everybody's ever traveled internationally. You go to Africa, and there's some places where you don't want to be. And guess what? The only safe place to live is within a walled HOA where it has their own police force, their own military, stuff like that. So it definitely does help. What's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like make up for like what the state like fails to provide for in terms of like security and infrastructure. Not to get off topic, but
yeah, no. I mean, I'm already thinking of like shit. I could go on some other tangents on HOAs, because I mean, I've been on other HOAs that were trash, but then I've been my HOAs now, which is great. But the difference being is the previous HOAs were more urban. Now it's more rural. I feel like more rural is a different mindset, less state intervention. For example, the HOA we have here, like I'm sure there are regulations they're supposed to abide by that they don't give a shit. I've been to HOA meetings and they've literally been like, yeah, we're supposed to do this. I don't give a fuck. And then like, all right, what's next? So it's kind of a mindset.
Right.
Yeah. But anyways, Automobiles are made counter-economically. Let me count the ways. Shipping them across borders, whether physically or on paper, to evade taxes or controls. Illegal alien labor for assembly line production. Skimming of parts by management, labor, or even at behest of the owners. Which parts then go to produce custom cars. Auto plant executives hired as independent consultants. Design, research, engineering, executive, and computer consultants all paid in partial or full counter-economic terms. Union corruption to make sweetheart deals to avoid labor state regulations. I love it how he's just like it's like that meme, like I'm about to end this man's whole career, like that meme, like he's really like fuck
He's
you.
going in. Yeah.
OSHA and other inspectors bought off or misdirected. Unsold product written off in inventory and then sold. Forget it. I cannot possibly count all the ways. And next to auto, steel, and cement have positively unsavory reputation when it comes to white-collar crime. There's a problem. Go ahead.
I was going to say, look, being from up north, like the Northeast in New Jersey, New York, and growing up in like the 90s and like the time of like John Gotti and the Gambinos and stuff, he's not wrong. Like the unions, every union is corrupt. It's like there's so much counter-economic activity going on that people just don't even know about, they don't pay attention to, or they're unaware of. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. There is a problem of scale here, though. Large cartelized industries can buy politicians and gain their advantages directly from the state.
Like Wells Fargo and Citibank, that's exactly what they've done.
Yep. True, anyone about to be apprehended by the state can, should, and does pay off, bribe, and apply grease to the state's enforcers. That kind of, there you go. That we kind of went on a tangent before on lobbying. I think that in some extents, in some situations, kind of applies there. Can, should, and does pay off, bribe, and apply grease to the state's enforcers. He's actually kind of being like, pay off what you got. If you got to do what you got to do, if you can bribe them, do what you got to do.
Oh, absolutely. I've often said that one of the greatest agorists around is the corrupt cop. We had a crooked cop in Brooklyn. New York is a completely gun-free zone. We had a cop who was in charge of handling all of the concealed carry permits. According to the Constitution, no state can say we're not going to give out concealed carry permits. They have to set out some sort of groundwork for it. And in New York, it's like justifiable need, so they make it impossible to get these concealed carry permits. Well, this Brooklyn cop who was in charge of denying the permits was taking bribes underneath the table from all the Jews out in Brooklyn. And before you know it, all the Jews in Brooklyn had guns on them, and they're walking around. But guess what? The crime stopped. There was a big, I don't know if anybody's from the area back in the day, the blacks and the Jews did not get along. There was always fighting and stuff like that. All the fighting stopped. It all went away because both parties had guns on them provided by the black market.
Yep. But what highly competitive industry with a large number of producers can effectively buy votes and politicians and hence be tempted to using their political clout offensively? Big industry in the cartelized sense is no breeding ground for libertarian support, but rather for the state's vested interests. In this year of 2022, if you haven't figured that out, I don't have to fucking tell you at this point.
Look at the inflation.
Yeah. However, there is no need to confuse large scale of production with oligopolist characteristics, as Rothbard seems to be doing here. Finally, as we close out this area, Rothbard accuses me of ignoring the working class, which, I don't know if we went on that, but if just that sentence alone, I would say it's the exact opposite. The working classes in many cases are the ones who actually are the best ones to exploit agorism.
I think it's exactly the road he's about to go down.
Yep. Considering how often he's had the charge leveled at him, one might expect a bit more perceptivity, if not sensitivity. What are plumbers, mechanics, carpenters, welders, drivers, farm workers, pilots, actors, accountants, engineers, technicians, lab assistants, computer programmers, and plain key punch operators, nurses, midwives, paramedics, and orthomedics, salespeople, public relations people, bartenders, waitresses, writers, factory workers, lawyers, executives, and all types of repairmen, if not workers, covering the entire spectrum of proletarianism, which especially like the first half of those are all ones that are like, you can easily do that shit under the table. Easily. Multiple of those jobs I've already had in my lifetime under the table.
There's no job you can't do where you can't introduce some aspect of counter economics to it.
Yeah. Yep, and to add to that, 11 of my years were as active duty military. So I really only had a few years aside from that of like work as an adult. So like there, like, and I already had a couple of those I could check off as doing under the table. So like, and I think some of those were in high school actually too. Now I think about it, but it's a lot of these, especially blue collar jobs, are very easy to do under the table. But anyways. On that list are at least 20% counter-economic. By the way, this is probably going to be our last paragraph because then it kind of like wraps up into another segment. All on that list are at least 20% counter-economic, and many are over 50%. If they do not take the first step towards economic liberty by becoming independent contractors, then their employer does. Tax-free tips for waitresses, off-the-book illegal alien factory workers, agents handling it for actors, writers, and so on. I challenge Rothbard to find any legitimate economic field not serving the state that cannot be economized. God, that word fucks with me. 10 that cannot be fucking goddamn it. Economized without organizational or technological innovation, or 100 that cannot be Jesus Christ, economized without significant gain in organizational efficiency and profit. Konkinism has plenty to say to everyone who is not a statist. All right, and then now and it kind of goes into the. I think next time we'll get into the, the first sentence is claim that political action is superior and preferable to civil disobedience. So you can already tell the next line of logic we're going to be going down. So this will be fun.
Yeah, he makes all the points that I try to make, but he just does a much better job of it.
Yes.
I wish I was as clear and concise and just like well-spoken as he is.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we're at a good spot. If you want to go and drop your plugs, we'll get out of here. For the few people who are watching right now, I'm going to be going over Tower Power Hour and hamming up with those boys on Odyssey only right now. If you're watching this later, you can go check it out. It'll already be up. But yeah, go follow us on Odyssey. But you want to go and drop your plugs?
GoreThreads.com for Libertarian Anarchist apparel. 3D printer Go Burr for 3D printers and 3D printing supplies. Of course, pay with crypto to avoid having to access KYC payment platforms. The book is Anti-Politics. Follow me on social media at Sally Mayweather, Sal the Agorist. I think that's it.
All right. Yeah, and that'll probably be the next book I read after this Anarchist Handbook that I've read a million times for my series. But that should be fun. Yeah, this was this is the No Way Jose show. You can find me on YouTube, all the major audio bookers, Odyssey as well. Follow me at 2020 No Way Jose. I've been seeing a big influx. I had a fucking tweet about a pineapple that's got almost 200 likes, and I was like, I thought it was gonna be like 15. Like this Elon shit is really weirdly making a difference. It's weird how things are working now that like the shadow bans are lifting. I was like, I did not expect this stupid fucking tweet to take off. But all right. Anyways, give me money, patreon.com, No Way Jose 2020. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I appreciate you coming on again, Sal. We'll have to set up another one again soon, and there should be more of these to come for those who enjoy it. And yeah, so I appreciate it.
See you guys.
All right.